Oh, it's very hot.
Go live this evening, slightly later than normal.
Welcome if you're joining
be
us
interested
on
to see who
this
joins us this
very
evening,
sunny
Claire.
Tuesday evening.
So as always, Claire's just doing some behind
and it is here in the Midlands, and I believe it is where our
up
guests
and
are
running
today.
on
We're so
her
in our guest
Facebook
is
page.
today.
And so
I'm so
welcome.
excited
We have Street
and
Vet,
grateful to have Nicola
Jade,
with us
the
today.
co-founder,
So
who's
we'll
joining
introduce
us
Nicola
tonight.
in a moment.
And
She's from the Veterinary Poison Information Service,
for you
which
to
you
join
may
us.
also know
Really
as
appreciate
Animal
you giving up
Poison
the time
Line.
to
And
share
I've
a little
used
bit
the
about
service with
what's
my
going
own
on
dog via my
with Street
vets,
Vet, your
and we had
ambitions and the history
a
behind
brilliant
it.
event where
So
my vets came and did a
before
charity
we
fundraiser
kick
for
off that,
us.
just to remind
And
everybody who
one of the
may not
things
know
they
who I
talked
am,
about
I'm
was how
Sarah
good
from
Animal
Berkshire Dog
Poison
Training.
Line
I'm
was
based in
as
Reading in
part of that
Berkshire,
package and part of delivering some
supporting
basic first aid
owners
to
with
some
real
of my
life
members
situations from
and
when they
guests.
get their first
And
puppy
since then, it's
home
been a bit of a
or
dream to
other
get
issues that they
Nicola
may be
and
dealing
team
with
on.
when
So
the
I'm
dog
very
maybe
grateful
it
they're
doesn't
here.
do
So
quite
just
what they
if you don't know
expect
who
to
I
do.
am,
So
I'm Clare. I
I'm on
run
hand
Insight
to
Hounds.
support
I
them
work
and help
purely
them
with sight
understand their
hounds,
dogs
and
a
I
bit better.
specialise in X-ray seen
So
greyhounds, and I
Claire,
work online
if
and in the
will you
Midlands.
finish? Are you ready?
I do many of the lives if
Hello,
you're a
I'm
regular
Clare, run
with
Insight
Sarah from
Hounds.
Berkshire Dog
I
Training.
work
Sarah,
exclusively
are
with
you
sight
good to go?
hounds,
In person and online.
Yeah,
and I
Nicola and I
specialise
just
in
realised
X-ray
that we're
seen
virtually
greyhounds, and I'm
neighbours, aren't we, Nicola?
so excited for
Yeah,
our
we could have
guest
been in the
this
same
evening.
house.
So
We could
thank
have
you
been,
so much,
exactly.
Jade, who's one
So
of the
I'm Sarah from
co-founders of
Berkshire Dog
Street
Training.
Vet, for
I
joining
cover
us
Berkshire,
today. So welcome, Jade.
and
Thanks for
Henley
having me. Thanks for inviting me.
supporting
It's
clients
an
with
absolute
real life
pleasure.
training. So
If
whether
people
that's a new
have
puppy, a rescue,
no
dogs
idea
with
who you
emotions,
are or haven't heard of
and
Street Vet,
Nicholas
can you
Clare
just give them a little bit of
likes to
background
highlight.
as
I
to who
also
you
love
are and
those
this
challenging
amazing
dogs that love
charity
to
you've
chase
created?
wildlife and squirrels
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
those sort of things. So,
My name is
dogs with
Jade
high play
Stat,
drive.
and I qualified
Find that
as a
really
vet in
fascinating. So
early
great to
200s.
be here with Nicola. So
200,
it'd be lovely to hear a little bit about
2002.
yourself and how
at
you got
Glasgow Vet
into
School.
working with the
And
Poison Line.
I was a vet in practice
Of
for many
course.
years.
Well, firstly,
still am
thank
a vet
you
in
both
practice
to you,
'cause I love
both
it.
Claire and Sarah, for inviting me. It's absolutely lovely to talk to you
went
this
on a
evening.
night out in 2016.
I'm Nicola
with
Robinson
some
and I'm a
friends of
vet,
mine,
so that was my
stopped to talk
first
to
sort
dogs,
of my
which
vet
is
hat
what
on.
I
I was a
do,
vet in
probably what we
practice
all
for
do.
15 years.
And the dog
But I had a
belonged
real sort of
to
fascination
a gentleman
for
who was experiencing
toxicology,
homelessness in
and
London at
so
the
I
time.
ended up working
And
for the
that
Veterinary Poison
conversation
Information
quite
Service from
literally changed
2015,
my life.
which in the
He
UK is the
just had a
only
bit of a
animal
nutty
poison
staffy,
centre that we
who
have.
was
We're just so
flicking me in the
lucky to
face
have it,
and
because in
I was
Europe
knocked down, and we got
there's only
talking,
one other, in fact,
and
which is in
he
France.
was just
So
really
we're the
worried.
only
His dog
one,
had
and it
some sore
means
skin
that
issues, a bit
vets
red,
and
bit
owners
itchy,
we can
and
support them if
yeah,
there's
I think
an animal
I
which has
hadn't
come into contact with
realised
something that might be
that
poisonous.
I
And
had
that
no
means
idea where
any
people
animal. I
in
mean, it's
those
mostly
kind of
dogs,
situations
as you
would
can
take their
imagine.
dog for vet care. So
They
I just
are the
asked him,
ones
and he
that
was
eat
like,
things they shouldn't
I don't know, Jade,
most
like I
frequently,
really
and
have
they
no
have
idea
no
what I'm
portion
going to do.
control, so
And
they tend to
at
eat
that time,
and keep eating.
I was going through
And then it's
kind
cats,
of
and then the
pre-grieving
most common
process with
one
my own
after
dog.
that, and then after
So I had a
that it's
chocolate
lots of
Labrador
other
called Oakley.
species.
And
But Animal Poison
I'd
Line
recently diagnosed him
started
with
in
cancer.
2017. So I
And
started
phoned
that
every
because
specialist I
the
knew,
VPIS,
and
which is the
explored every
Veterinary
option I
Poison
could possibly
Information
find,
Service,
and I knew I was
has
going to
been
lose
going
him.
since
And
1992, but only for vets in
yeah,
practice.
just
So
that kind
we
of
were
rock
here
of a
so
dog,
that vets
as
can call us
as
if
they
they
are,
needed us
through
to
quite a
help
lot
them
of
manage the
mental health
case.
issues that I'd had.
A
I'd
vet
been
in
off
practice
depression
cannot be
quite a few times
expected
in my
to know
career.
the thousands of poisons that we
I don't know. I
about.
think there was just
Bearing in
some kind of
mind, last year it's
serendipity in
around,
the
I think it was
meeting of this
50,000
gentleman,
different
and
agents
just
we had
that
last year.
realization that all I could think
So we
about
are the
the whole
specialists in
time
an
when I
area,
left him
helping
was what would I
vets.
have done if that
And
had
then
been
from
Oakley.
2017, we opened
And
our
it
lines to
really,
owners on
don't know,
Animal
just hit me
Poison
really
Line,
hard.
which is a
And I
triage
just
line
thought
that
if I
owners
had
can
what I
ring if they're
needed, I
concerned
could
their
have
pet
helped
has come
him.
into
And then
contact with something and they're
I
not
just
sure
thought,
what to
right,
do.
I'm going to do that.
Most of the dogs or cats are
And
not
that
showing
was the
signs
start
at
of
that
it, really.
point.
So
And the owners just
nobody
need,
needs
they're
to
very
set up a
worried often,
charity.
they just need to check
Definitely not.
whether they need to go
I
to
was
the
like,
vet or
Mum,
not. So that's
Dad,
what
I'm just
Animal
going to put a
Poison Line
backpack
is.
on.
And it's
I'm going to
been
go out one Sunday a
hugely
month,
successful.
and I'm
It's
just going to
now
help
got
people
probably double
who
the
can't
number of
access
calls
veterinary
coming through
care
each
for their
month
dogs.
compared to the
Mum
vet
and Dad
line.
were like putting
So we're
GPS trackers
accessing
in my
many
backpack
more
and just
pets, which
thinking,
is wonderful.
what is she actually doing.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I think
it was
I
quite a
didn't
naive
know
thing
about
to
the
think I
services
could
as
do,
said
to be honest.
until my
Looking
vet
back
put
on
me
it
in
now,
touch. But I know my vet used the service to
sweet
contact you,
way.
and knowing that I could have done it myself after the
there was
situation
a lot to be done.
is
Like, I
just
couldn't just
brilliant
put
that I
a
think
backpack
people
on and
being
go
aware
out.
that that's the case,
So
that
I
they can
met
give you a call at any time
a guy
is
called
really,
Joshua Coombs,
really
who's still a
valuable.
really good friend of mine.
So,
And
also, just
cut
sorry, just
people
to add,
experiencing
it's
homelessness
24 hour. I
people's
think some of
hair.
the really difficult
And
and
he
worrying
started a
times
movement
is sort of when
called
it's
Do
night
Something
time,
for Nothing.
or late in the evening,
And
and you
I just got in
might
touch
be
with
at
him, and
home
I was like,
alone,
I
someone
want to do
might
what you
be
do.
unwell, or they might
I
have
don't
young
really know how to
children,
do it.
and they just need to know
And we met for
whether
coffee,
they need to
and he was
worry
like,
or not. So
let's do
getting
it.
that information
He's
quickly that's
quite an
accurate
inspirational chap.
directly,
But I
I
was like,
think is
Josh, you just need
a
scissors.
real
Like,
help
I
to
need to
people.
make sure I'm not going to
Yeah,
get
no,
struck
definitely.
off.
definitely.
So how's
So
the
it took quite a lot
who do
of
they
kind of
get to
meetings
speak to when they do phone up?
Yeah, lots of
They've got quite a
dotting
large
I's
team.
and
Well, we're
crossing
getting larger all the
T's and
time
just
because
making sure that
we're
I wasn't going to do
increasingly
anything
having more
that
calls.
was
So
going
each
to
month
cause my
our
professional
call volume's
qualification
going
any
up,
risk,
and
but
we're
also
certainly
you need
on the
to,
total call
if you
volume
prescribe
is
a drug, you
around,
have to provide
at the
24-hour
moment, we're
care.
averaging
So it
probably
was working out the
120 calls a
logistics of
day,
how I was going to do
cases a
that. And
day.
you can't
That's
just
between the animal
store
poison
drugs
line
and be
and the
inspected,
vet
and
calls on
there's lots of
VPIS.
elements, and so I was a
So
bit
you
like,
come through on the
this is
animal
harder than
poison
I
line. There
thought.
is a consultation fee, so you do
It
actually pay as you
really,
come
really
through.
tough.
And
it
then you
just
speak to come straight through to one of my team, and
it was
it's a sort of
amazing how
multidisciplinary
supportive all
team.
the
There
people
are
that I
vets
phoned
and
and
vet
spoke to
nurses.
in
There's
terms of
also
the hardest thing
toxicologists
to
that used
get
to
was
work on the human
insurance,
side.
not the veterinary
There
insurance,
are
but
other
public
scientists
liability insurance,
and
because it's
graduates
like, I'm
who've
going to
done
be on the
bioveterinary
streets, and I'm going to
sciences.
have
So a great
drugs,
mixture. So we all
there's
sort of
going to be
complement each other.
dogs, and the insurance
And they're
companies
I
all
can't imagine
very
direct
trained
line actually
experts
going,
in
yes,
this
no
area, so
problem
we
at
train
all.
them when they come to us. Yeah.
So that was a
That's
real
really
step
reassuring.
because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get this.
Yeah, definitely. Really reassuring. I think a couple of things, Nicola, I really wanted to cover today is 2 points, which I'm sure we'll cover them both. Is firstly, I think lots of people know, for example, oh, chocolate's toxic to my dog. I need to be aware of chocolate. But there's lots of things out there that are toxic that people maybe aren't aware of or don't know could be toxic. So I think one of the things I'd love to cover today is some of those. And then another point that we'll come to is also some of those myths that fly around about what's toxic and whether they are myths or whether they are reality. But if we go first with some of the things that maybe are in our homes that people aren't aware are toxic would be a good starting point. Now, I appreciate there's probably lots of things, and as you said, there's thousands of things that are toxic. So in our live session, I don't expect you to go, right, here's the list. But but obviously some of the more common ones that you find dogs are struggling with in particular that people may not be aware of.
In practice can be a really
hard place to be. I think that's it's really important. I touch on that quite a bit in the film. Do get advice really quickly, because I think it's really easy to think you know when things are poisonous and when they're not, but not everything's got poison written on the box. It's not always rat poison
what Street Vet does is it allows
beta, whatever. It's going to be, and people know about all those and household products
worrying
and things.
About money and
but
time
actually,
and
some of the nasties are things
just allows them
you
to
wouldn't
do
always think about. So one that always surprises me that is really nasty is mold on food. So certainly in this weather, people often have food bins or compost heaps, or they're on a walk and someone's throwing a sandwich in the bush or something, and it goes mouldy really quickly. And I'm talking about the really sort of fairy mold. And if a dog gets hold of that, they can get neurological
my
signs
intention, but it did that
really
for me
quickly. I mean,
and
most cases within half an hour.
Quite a lot of other
so you could be on a dog walk. You by the time you get your dog back to the car, it
No,
could be showing signs then,
and
it's such a worry for an owner, especially if they don't know what the dog's eaten. For us, we can try to narrow it down for them. But the dog will start tremoring, so they can have these involuntary tremors, and they can lead on to seizures depending on how much they've had and how big the dog is. And that's the same with a lot of poisons, not all. But most, it depends on the size of your dog, how much they've had. So here we're very experienced in our risk assessment.
But the whole reason that they came into the industry
so mold is a big one. Other things that people might use on their animals, things like
technical requirement, isn't it? So it's all animals and all sizes that they support.
Pure tea tree oil. I'm just
on curious about
on their what we call the ventrums, the stomach.
When you started
if they've got a rash or something, they might put tea tree oil.
Needed your help.
And that unfortunately can cause quite nasty signs.
Again,
I'll end the question there. Sorry.
No, again, not like I expected. I genuinely thought that here I was bouncing over
they could be literally paralysed from almost just the back legs and crawling around on their front legs. It's reversible. they get it back, it's as transient, but a huge shock to the owner who would never know that's an issue. What else do people not know? I think
I hadn't
medications
that
obviously people are going to be concerned about. I think sometimes
they need your help, they're paying for your help,
don't know that medicines don't always just contain an active ingredient to make you better.
And so
we get lots of calls where owners are worried about, say, a spray or something. In particular, one is vitamin D spray, where they're really worried about the vitamin D because vitamin D can be toxic to dogs depending on what type it is. But actually, those sprays, the vitamin D is quite safe, that particular type of vitamin D, but it contains often xylitol, which is that sweetener, which is really can be fatal to dogs if they have enough of it. And I think it would be easy to not seek advice if you think it's in a small amount, the vitamin D is okay. Well, actually, that small amount might be too much xylitol.
Key for me.
So medications certainly have that,
had already developed
and other medications that people.
And so he was
I think it's a perception that these are safer.
Like, she's not here to
medications you put on your skin.
Take your dog away, or she just wants to help you.
Know
and so
what psoriasis or any of your family
has
psoriasis.
Learning
it's that sort of dry,
scaly
but the first
skin
condition, which is really debilitating for people.
Going up to people in that
so it's really, and they really do
it.
Want to have a cure to it.
So,
and some of the creams contain vitamin D, but it's a very, very toxic form of vitamin D for dogs. So even if we get called and it's a great Dane and it's had a few licks of the owner's arm, for example,
vouch for us, but just allow us to be present.
The toxic dose for that type of vitamin D is
turning up
very, very small. It's milligrams per kilogram. You can't work it out, basically. It's too small. So that is something that people, I don't think, realise if they put like a cream on their skin.
I mean, I'm very
that if their dog licks it, they often think it's going to be okay. So psoriasis creams or hair growth creams like ones that contain minoxidil or the anti-cancer creams, one's called
I mean, the homeless community is incredibly connected. So we have
can
see
be
people
fatal,
in our
and often
London
people
outreach who
leave
then
them
turn
and
out
they go to the vets too late, and that
so
can be,
you know, people talk,
can be a real,
and they're like,
problem.
They looked after my dog, and
and also
there's
okay.
Or,
if I'm allowed to carry on,
I went into hospital.
There's a plant.
You know, all of these things start to.
I think people should know about, because again, we get very serious cases.
It is a much
easier all these ones I've mentioned
transition
so far,
to trust.
We can have fatalities every year. Is autumn crocus. So that is
fascinating. You talk there about like the myths and trusting, and there's so many angles that this is coming from, because you're looking at the vets,
but it's not actually
you're looking at the people
same family, so people think it is.
You, and I think
and spring crocus is low toxicity, and autumn crocus
as well. And I think
different
there's a lot of people out there that love dogs, that see homeless people with dogs,
very, very
and have
unwell.
certain opinions
really be careful
on
of. Don't
those
look
people
up
having
dogs and think you're okay
that haven't got a home, because as a pet,
I think it's so
interesting
because
I mean, oh my goodness me, like
nearby, the River Thames, we are forever having items of bread being thrown out for the wildlife on the river.
We're spending more on our dog's food than we are on our own food, and all of this sort of stuff. So
I mean,
then
the wildlife do a great
people
job
look
of
at people that are homeless
eating most of it, thankfully.
But
I know that there's always a few crumbs around
because they think that will get them more donations, or they think people will give them more money.
So I have to be very careful.
Obviously, you're on the ground.
Knowing about the mould.
How many of those myths do you come across, and what sort of things do you hear, and what's the reality
about that
from
is
your
really,
point of
really
view?
helpful, Nicola.
We did some work with Tails.com, and they did some really interesting sort of surveys of the public, and they've done them consecutively for us.
Just
say that again for us, Nicola. We just lost you for a moment.
But at the beginning, one of the questions was, when you see someone experiencing homelessness with a dog, what's the first emotion or the top emotion you feel? And the one that came out above all else
give it to
was
my
anger.
dog, or mouldy cream cheese,
that's
which
hard,
but
I get it.
very furry very quickly.
And there was also, are you more
and
likely
they
to
actually
stop
feed it to them because they think it's okay, and they don't realise it's so toxic.
And it's it's the same as if I walk down the street.
Does blue cheese fall into that category as well? Blue cheese, as opposed to sort of, people often talk about their dog cheese as a treat or cheddar or something, but blue cheese is obviously full of
yes, I think there
mould
absolutely
well,
is.
It is, and generally we don't find too many nasty cases of blue cheese. Really embarrassingly, my dog ate a huge
interaction,
lump of Stilton
that there is
years
some
ago at Christmas. I mean,
angle
he was
to it.
luckily had the right owner, because I could
I guess from a street vet point of
you don't need to
view,
go to the vet.
the
But really,
people that
it was
engage with street vet
it
are
was
people
huge
who
how much
will do
and people
whatever
do
it
worry about blue
takes to
cheese.
look
We
after
don't
this
tend to
pet.
get too much
And
an
a lot
issue.
of
They
our
probably
clients,
get tummy
majority of
upset
our
from that,
clients,
but we
have had
do
their
if it's
pet
mouldy blue
before they
cheese.
became homeless.
Okay,
So they
so
are part
blue
of
cheese as well
their
goes
journey.
mouldy.
They're part of their story.
And so that would obviously be a problem, or very
I
ripe
guess
and a bit mouldy.
it's just encouraging people
be very
to
careful again with that.
On face value, I can understand it.
Thank you.
I know why
I think
people
when
think
we were
it.
talking
But
there, one of the
until
things
you've
that
had a
I'm seeing,
conversation
you
with
talked
another
about
human being,
creams,
you have no
and
right
I'm
to
not sure of my age,
give
what
your
I'm being
opinion.
targeted with on social
Just
media at
surmise
the
what
moment,
you
but
think
I'm
their
seeing a lot
motivations
about
are.
hormones and
I
HRT
guess
and that sort of thing. But there's been some stuff
another
doing
thing I
around
guess I
about
didn't
how
realise, I mean, I say the
sometimes
same as well, I didn't
HRT
realise
on the
this, I didn't
skin
realise
can
this,
have an
I
impact
clearly didn't know what I was doing. But
on dogs. And I think just again over the years, I think people are spending more time in more proximity with their dogs. So dogs like cuddled up with them more, or in bed, or all of those sort of things, as well as just, oh, your dog just sleeps on the kitchen floor. I think dogs are such a big part of our lives now.
And that
that's sort of changed over time, that they're on our proximity, touching us maybe more than they would have been once upon a time.
Creating barriers.
But does HRT come up for something?
What is already a really,
I mean, the thing you've got to remember
situation
is that if it goes across our skin,
and the reason,
it's going to go across their skin as well. The only difference is they've got lots of fur, so
warmth,
it
security,
has to actually be in
reason
contact
for
with the
living,
skin. But don't
all of
forget
those
that dogs
amazing
don't have
things
much
that we know that dogs give
fur
us.
on their bellies.
The reality
So
is,
of course, if they're
they
lying
can't
across
access
someone's
some soup
lap
kitchens because they've
and
got a
they
dog.
put
They can't get into
HRT gel
hostels because they've
on
got
their
a dog.
legs,
Less than
then
10%
that
of
can
hostels in the UK
certainly
let them
affect
in.
the dog.
They will not
so
prioritise
especially with
their own
smaller
health
dogs,
because they
you're
will
unlikely
not
to
leave
have
their
a
dog with
40-kilo dog
anyone.
on your lap.
So they are,
but
I'm
with
the
these
guy
smaller dogs,
in the early
lap
days
dogs.
that still
My
had a
one behind me is
tag on. He
25
had
kilos,
pneumonia.
and he'll be
He
on my
just
lap if
discharged
given
himself
half a chance.
because he couldn't
well,
bear
there you
the
go.
thought of what was happening to his dog.
So
He was
all those
going into
areas which
hospital.
have less
So,
fur on, less hair
people
on,
need to
are
just kind
certainly
of
you're at risk.
turn it on the head. Yes, the dog is
key
with
to
them, but do you know
HRT
what
or
they're giving
any
up?
of these
They're actually
hormonal
foregoing a
treatments
stepping stone
is
to
that it
get
is
themselves
chronic
back
exposure
to their
caused
life,
not
because
acute exposure.
being in a hostel
And that
allows you
includes
access
contraceptive
to
pills.
so much more support
any of these
than
that
you
they are
get,
given,
obviously,
because
if you're
effectively it's estrogen and
rough
progesterone,
sleeping. But
any of them that they are given
it was
or
through a
receive
conversation that I
chronically,
had with
which
a
means
client,
on a
and he said,
regular
"Oh yeah,
basis, and that is
I'm
why you get
intentionally homeless,
concerned
don't you
about
know?"
those that might
And I was like, "What are you talking
have
about?
a sort
Intentionally
of
homeless?" And he was like, "Yeah,
they're at home
I won't
and
give
it's
up
their
my dog,
normal routine
so
that the
I'm
owner
intentionally
puts on their
homeless."
HRT gel,
And I was
and they
just
always
like,
then sit and
"Sorry,
watch an hour's TV
run
or
that by
something,
me
and they
again."
put the dog on their
And
lap.
yeah,
It
so
might be a
you get offered a
routine they
room.
have,
In
and
order
they're
to
going to
take
be
the room, you have to give up your
potentially
dog. Obviously, they
at
ain't going to
risk
do that.
then
So
of having
that's them
issues.
intentionally
But it would
homeless.
not happen
And I was like, nah,
if that same
that's not
dog
okay.
had
So
not been
at that
exposed
point,
to it,
that was about
but had got hold of
2020,
the owner's
2019.
bottle of the gel and had
We
the whole lot.
started having
That would be
conversations with hostels going, okay, what
and
can we do
contraceptive
to
pills, they
help
can
you
have
take dogs?
very
And at the beginning,
large
it was just
numbers. They are
simple
very
stuff
low
like, okay, we'll give you
toxicity. It's that
muzzles, we'll
accumulation
give you a crate.
that is the problem through
And
the
then
skin,
we
unfortunately.
started
But
to
it's
do
a
a bit
real
more
problem.
kind of discussion and find
Definitely,
that,
it's just
the biggest reason
you
that
really take
hostels were
care
saying
not
no
to make sure they're exposed
was because
continuously.
of health and safety,
That's
and actually just
interesting.
like a
I think as
complete
well with the sight
lack of
hounds that I
training. Like, they
work
were
with,
scared.
especially
A
kind
lot
of like the
people
greyhounds,
working in
whippets,
hospitals didn't know how to work with dogs. Not a clue.
they've got
So if you're
different
dealing, I don't know if
fur
either of
to
you
a lot
been
of
in
other
a
dogs
hostel,
because they've only
but
got
they
one
can be
layer of
very
fur as
complex,
opposed to
chaotic
sort of
places.
the multiple
And
layers.
you then
And the
stick
whippets
dogs in the mix.
especially,
You can
and
see
some
why
of the
people are like,
greyhounds,
do you
they
know
love
what, this is hard enough.
whippets love
Wait,
to
I can't do
climb
this.
under beds,
So
under tunneling in and
yeah,
sleeping. So
and
it's quite
then
common for the thin
there was a
skin, the
competition
thin
announced on
fur or not
LinkedIn.
much fur,
It was Better with
and
Pets
delicate
Prize.
skin and climbing into
Karina,
bed
which
every
is the
night
project
and
that
sleeping under the
strengthen
quilts.
and improve the
They're, I
human-animal
suppose,
bond. And I
something
was
to be
like,
mindful
saw it
of,
on the
that
Friday, you had to
sort of
submit it on the
breed
Monday, and I was like,
with the fur
well, that's my
and
weekend.
that lifestyle would be something that could be exposed
So we
on a
did,
regular basis.
and
Well, also,
we won.
just anything to do with beds. So
The money
one of the
to
nasty, I
start
think about the
it. So
hair growth
we won that money, and then we
cream that you put
created
on,
the
people
Street
put
Vet
on if they're
Accredited Hostel
balding.
Scheme.
If they then lie on a
That was in
pillow,
2020.
cats and dogs are so
We are
sensitive
now
to
we have
it that if a
3
cat then decides
full-time
to go and
members of
lie on the
staff
pillow and lick the pillow
that
and it's
run it.
grooming but also licking,
I don't have my
they can
latest
become
stats.
unwell
I
from
probably should have
that.
checked,
So it is
a moving feast,
from
but
looking at the owner's head,
we've got
which
about
always
80
amazes me.
accredited
People
hostels
let their
across
pets
the UK.
lick their head, but they do. Each their own. But
it's basically
certainly
just trying
that is
to
a problem if they're licking the
get
head, or even, as I
wraparound
say,
support.
just from
But the
the
main thing is
pillowcase
education and
that the
training for the
person's
people that are
lying
working
on.
there.
Yeah.
Obviously we
I
give
think
food
it's
to the
the
dog,
cream
get
thing I
delivered,
never
they get their
realised.
pack,
When I
they
put
get
body
veterinary
lotion on,
care.
my girl.
platform,
There's something about, you know, a lotion
boarding,
that goes on my body that she just really likes to lick, and I've never known it before.
Contracts,
and
policies,
you know, it's like
training,
making sure that it's all safe and what from that perspective. But
it's a lot.
You know, it's something I didn't experience until I got this current dog. So it's not all
Christmas
dogs
Day,
that
and I
have
got
that
a call from
tendency,
someone
thankfully. But it
who
is
was
just,
working in the hospital.
I don't know what it is. My boy's not interested at all, but my girl is like, as soon as it's like she's got a homing pigeon, I'm like, oh, okay, so I've got a body lotion on, and then that's it.
Can you help me? This dog's just collapsed in the hospital, and I don't know what to do, and no one will help me, and it's Christmas Day. And the dog had a ruptured pile in the end, it turned out. And I was just like,
I think we just lost you for a moment again, Nicola. Sorry.
Do you know what I mean?
I'll take you back. Sorry, no, please don't worry. Just
she didn't know what to do, and there was just nothing in place.
Top tip for anyone listening is that anything that has been
I mean, it's an amazing journey, and you know, I mean,
so what you were talking about,
it feels like you're still just touching the surface of the legacy that, you know, you're developing, you know, from that perspective, and just to give you a chance to reflect. I mean, we've just been having some wonderful comments coming in. No questions per se, but you know, you'll get to read
they would be too worried that owners would by
your
mistake
number one fan,
put
Rachel,
their fingers in the mouth, or a child would. They'd be really safe,
who is in the industry, and we know her well.
So all those cosmetics and toiletries are much more
likely been sharing some really lovely
to be okay
than
a medicated cream, which is the ones we were talking about, which have a medication in them,
and Steph,
which can be much more nasty. There's a big distinction
between, you know, spoke to someone, and it was just
pure
love that they were talking about.
Reassured me, you know, so
you're right about the, you know, it's just the judgment and everything else. I have a term sometimes, you know, I'm a fill in the blanks,
with my head.
you know, as humans, we make our own.
I think this heat wave lately, we're all like lathering things up more than you would maybe normally in the depths of winter as well. So
therefore, you know, we
another
just
myth that I wanted to touch on. There was one recently, and I did see that you put a statement out that was doing the social media that a dog had died from visiting a tulip
thank you on
farm.
behalf of everybody who gets the opportunity to hear your story through our lives and YouTubes and channels, to say, you know, thank you and your team for helping everybody.
One of our roles
just incredible.
Best journey of my life.
Our biggest aim
Hardest,
is to make sure
but the
that
best.
everyone
So
has accurate
I don't regret any of it.
up to date, accurate
I
information.
love how you do. You don't just see it and
when
go,
to do it.
You're like, right, I'm doing it. What can I do? How can I do?
So
if
you heard what my mum said, she still denies it to this day. She's like, I never told you not to do it, but she said, "This is really your battle,"
and make sure that we are happy that it is something that is
absolutely,
and as accurate as possible.
And it's incredible. And I think, like
get all sorts of people who
one of the things that I've heard you say is if you asked anybody that was watching this who
are not,
they're going to love dogs if they're watching this, and if you said if you had to give it your dog, would you? And people would be absolutely not. But like you say, the effect it has not giving it the dog. And I thought your film that you did was absolutely incredible in explaining that. And you had a lady on there that had like escaped domestic violence and taken her dog with her, and meant that was to mean she was going to be in a situation where she was homeless because she wanted to keep her dog, who had been such a support for her through the circumstances she was living with, and that put her in a situation where you're homeless. And like you say, because of the way the project the hostels had worked,
some of it had gone into its mouth, or
it's keeping them out of
perhaps from
support
licking.
to get back
if
into
that was
society
the case, I can only
and
tell
get
you
back into homes.
so
And
many
the fact that you've got the hostel project alongside it, and I'd urge anyone, we'll pop the links for the films. It's just absolutely incredible. And I loved your film. I thought you had such a broad range of people, and I think it must only touch the surface on some of the people that you work with day in, day out. But someone that's fled domestic violence,
and
someone
it's completely normal.
Would say that, you know, I'm a criminal and I can't be a criminal anymore because I've got my dog. I can't get to prison because what would happen to my dog? And like,
understandable.
The dogs are keeping them on the straight and narrow, which is just
my dog became ill afterwards,
incredible. The love of dogs and how much it's doing for people. But like you say, how much it's held them back, and how much support you put in place to stop that being the case is just it's inspirational.
And that's what happened in this case.
Your video and hear what you do.
Exactly what happened.
The lady that's in the film, so she's a volunteer for us.
The signs it showed were not
dog groomer.
what we see in
She's a
tulips.
hairdresser now.
Over 600 cases on our database.
Yeah, she was in
of ones that have eaten it. They might not be showing signs, but we have follow-up to what happened, and the literature, of course. And that was such an unfortunate situation because the owner was trying to do the right thing. And I think perhaps the vet may have thought it was the tulips, and we just had to unfortunately step in and put the record straight just to bring the alarmist nature of the information down and just reassure people, don't be scared to walk in a public park with tulips.
I think there's so many things as a charity you've achieved, and we could talk about so many incredible achievements that you've done. But one of the things I did want to talk about is just some of the stories, the everyday moments that kind of
but it's a real
really make you tick or really drive you. And you've touched on a couple of them, but are there any other stories that have really just kind of like gone, yes, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, this is where the moments happen to know.
I miss it. Like, I don't get to go out on the street anywhere near
accurate information out there, and that's where you guys come in, that it is all accurate. I know just before we went live, we mentioned
one of the times that
Sarah, there'd been some experiences
kind of just sort of sat
drug related
this is
that
working.
unfortunately
like,
it's happened where dogs are eating maybe feces or going out and picking up drugs off the floor, unfortunately, and that seems to be causing an issue. Is there anything you can tell us a little bit more detail about that, Nicola?
In a normal situation,
I mean, certainly drugs of abuse is, our largest
what were they going to do?
group of toxins that we're called about is
just be absolutely
drugs.
hysterical and
That
trying to sort something
human
out.
medications.
He
it includes
obviously
veterinary drugs, which is
he had the tag,
if the owner has given the wrong medication
free phone number
to the wrong dog, or the right, so they've done it the wrong way around, or the wrong way, they might have given it in the mouth rather than the skin, that kind of thing. That can be quite nasty. Or a vet might have accidentally given them the wrong strength of tablet. That can happen too.
Stayed in the vets, I believe,
although human medications are our biggest group, about 40%.
Again, that in itself is massive.
But of course, within that, those drugs is drugs of abuse as well.
He was part of Street
and it's become increasingly common, particularly cannabis.
Going to see him, telling him
as I talked about toxicovisions before, we also look at trends.
She survived.
There can be trends which are
she
seasonal,
lost an eye
or trends that just happen to be 1
year.
year. So
but
a few years ago, it was palm oil got washed up on beaches. That was a seasonal one.
Like a tank
cannabis is all year round, but it is a trend that's going up and up.
She was okay.
So I think it's something to owners really to look out for. And that this is not saying that the owners are taking cannabis and the dogs are finding it in their home. It's nearly always, well, we don't know. We're told it's always found in the park. Of course, it might be someone's home. But we take it to the park, and we know that the signs of cannabis are
we're not an
quite
emergency
distinctive.
service. And
so
majority
the
of our
owner
clients
has those signs, and they would have to go to the vets with them. This is one that is not worth calling the animal poison line about. If your dog's showing significant signs and you are concerned, you won't be wasting time.
No idea what to do.
Coming through to us and us telling you to go to the vet. You'll be going to the vet at that point, and probably the vet will call us and ask us how to treat it if they need to.
It's just knowing that
but the signs, they can become very wobbly.
They can, be like,
they
well,
can
actually,
look like
they
are slightly spaced out, so slightly hallucinating.
The
the heart rate goes down, but that's hard
that
for
ability to empower the owners to
work
be part
out
of
at home.
something that they,
but something that's really interesting about
the
cannabis is that the temperature goes down. So when we're speaking to a vet and the vet's not sure, they often say to us, the dogs come in, but its temperature
is there a
came
kind
in
of
and it was 37, but it's now gone down to 36.2, and it seems like it's going down again.
Are doing on a more regular basis? Is this something that you treat out there
so it's a real
on the
sign.
floor on a day-to-day basis? Is it kind of like your flea worming? Is it or is it how long, like veterinary practice, you can get a varied day and you never quite know what's coming in, sort of thing?
So
we mostly see sort of staffy process. So they, as a breed, are more predisposed to getting skin problems. As we said, a lot of these dogs are older,
cannabis
so we
is a
have
problem,
lots
and
of
yes, they can get it from
and
eating
lots of arthritis.
feces.
But I mean,
main
in general, because we now
it
don't
are
just do
found in the
the
household,
outreaches on the street, we also have an
or
out of
in the
area
bushes, on a
support.
walk,
So we started
found on
that
the street,
in
that kind
pretty
of
much in
thing.
COVID,
And the
because
other
the
drugs, of
demand
course,
was
we're
just
called
too high
about,
and
but
we
just not
couldn't
as
open
commonly.
on
So cocaine, ecstasy,
Teams quick enough.
um,
So we now
are
offer
common
like an
too,
emergency
but they
service. So
would
if
be
people are
much
experiencing
more,
homelessness
they
around
are
the UK,
stimulants.
they can
So
be
the dog is
referred to
much more
us either by
hyperactive
themselves,
and
or
jumpy,
we get referrals from all over
looking
the
like
place.
it might seizure,
We just have to
as
verify that
opposed
they're
to the
eligible,
cannabis. They're
and
a bit
then
more
we will
wobbly
support
and a bit
them for
more
emergency, or if
depressed.
their animal is
But they
suffering.
can
So
alternate with being
we will get
stimulated, so
those
it's a bit of a
emergency
tricky one.
surgeries.
But
So
yes, they are
dogs that are hit by
sadly
cars, or
quite common, and can take a few days to recover if they've had a lot.
So
No, I know
but
several
majority of the
people in the
time
area,
when we're out and about with
unfortunately.
the backpack
So
on,
thank
it
you. That's
is
really helpful.
about listening
And
to
vaping
people,
as well,
giving
that seems to
time,
be kind of on the up now. People,
and
you know,
then obviously
almost
preventative
encouraged not to
treatments,
smoke, but
first
vaping is a
opinion
better option.
treatments.
So there's
And
quite a lot of vaping out
yeah, I mean,
there. Is the
it's
risks
evolved
with
beyond
the
a point I
vapes
thought
and
it
the
would. Like when
dogs?
I started speaking, I was like,
So
right,
with vapes, so
there's
that
no
you're
way
right,
we're
last
going to
10
treat a
years,
dog
that's
with
just gone,
Cushing's. There's no way we're going to treat a dog with diabetes.
really through the roof as
We're
the
not
number
going
of
to.
calls
And
we
like,
get for
yeah, we
vaping
do.
compared, or
And
vaping
the
fluids,
reason
the
we do
refill
is
bottles, that
because
kind of thing, compared to
I
cigarettes now.
underestimated
I mean,
the
it's
commitment
just,
from the
you know, it's
owners
way overtaken
to
cigarettes.
make it, to make that work. So
They're not
the
a
dog that we have
huge
with
problem,
diabetes,
nicotine. I don't want to
he
completely
lives
downplay
in
it. Some of the
a
vaping liquids have
caravan,
no
I think it
nicotine
is,
in
or a
at all.
van.
So the first
It's
thing
not even in an
owners should
area where
do
we
before
have
they
an
call us
outreach,
or before they
but we
speak to
have
the
an
vet is
RSPCA officer
work
who
out, tell
helps
us
us
what
to
it'll have a
like
percentage on it, and it's a
gain
certain
trust,
number
I
of mgs
guess.
per mil that we can work
We
out
have a
from that
practice who
percentage.
is committed to that man.
And generally,
And then he
nicotine
has
doesn't
like
get
a
absorbed very
random
easily
neighbour who gave him a
from
fridge
the
and
stomach.
plugged it in
It
outside her house.
undergoes something
So,
called first pass
you know,
metabolism,
all of
which
those
means that
things
basically
mean that we
doesn't
now
really
treat a
have to
dog
go
with
to the bloodstream
diabetes.
as
So
much.
I never
So the
thought we
cases are really
would,
mild
but I
for nicotine,
underestimated A,
and we don't.
the owners, and B,
You know, there are a
how
few
many
things that
people
our
want
heart
to
rate
help
goes up the
and
instant we
make
get the
things
cases, but
work.
nicotine is not one of them.
Well, and I think
like
that
cannabis
is a
other
a real reason
drugs,
why
but nicotine is
locally we've chosen
it's much
your
lower risk,
organisation
really.
to benefit
But
from the dog show
beware
that's
of
on Sunday.
beware
And
of vaping, beware of
I know
the snus pouches
appreciate
and things. They've got xylitol.
let
So
the vets
again,
know
going back
that
to what we said at the very
managed
beginning,
to get you to come
the
along
nicotine
today.
then
So
doesn't worry us.
for that
The
cause,
xylitol
how does that money
does.
get shared and
So
out
that
to the people that need it? I
Thank you
guess
so
is
much
a
for that.
maybe
So
a good opportunity
if
just
I
to
was
bring
in a
that to life. And
situation and
you know,
I thought,
if
oh
people
my
come
goodness
along
me,
and
I think my
joining the
dog's
dog
eaten
show
something,
and
been
be raising
exposed to something,
some
licked
funds, how
something,
does that money get
and now
spent?
I'm not sure
Yeah, I mean,
whether it's
ultimately,
okay, whether it isn't.
veterinary
What would
costs
be the
and
first port of
delivering the
call,
service
and
is
what?
the most
Well, obviously
expensive
to
part of
contact
street vet.
yourselves.
In terms of
But
that,
is there
so
anything that
we
it would
on
be
average
helpful for me in that moment
are
to
spending
be
between sort
able
of 15
to
and
know to inform you?
£16,000 a month.
So, for example, if I was dialing
on
your number, going, I think my dog's been
veterinary fees.
exposed to something, is it
We are
useful for
in
me
a
to know,
very
like, the weight of my
privileged
dog,
position,
have any
where
containers of
obviously we have,
anything
I think it's
to
over 500 now
understand it,
vets and
any
nurses who
symptoms
are
that they're
volunteering
displaying?
their
What's
time for
helpful
free.
for me when
We
I come
also
through
get
to you, or
a
do you
lot
guide me
of
through all
support
of
from
that when
drug
I call
companies,
up? Or
food
We
companies,
guide
toy
you, and we
companies.
find owners
We
better
are
vets
like,
when we speak to them, as
I
far
say
as
this a
getting the
lot, but it is
information. I have to be
beyond
completely
true.
honest,
Like, if
because
we
a vet's really busy in
hadn't had the
practice.
support
So
that
when
we've
we
had
speak to a
from
vet and
the
they say
veterinary
we've had a
profession
call
and
from an owner
beyond,
and they've
we wouldn't have
taken, the
been able
dog's
to
taken
scale
2
as we have.
lemsips,
So
and we need to know to bring it in or
in
not. I say
terms
no
of,
problem. And how big's the dog? And they
that
say,
all
oh,
helps to
so
keep
I
the
didn't
cost
ask
down. The
that.
fact we
And
don't have
which lemsip
we
was
have
it? Because of
offices, we
course,
don't have vet
lemsip, there are
practices,
about
all of
20
these
different
things
varieties.
keep
Oh,
costs
I'm
down
not sure. I'll have to call
as
you
well.
back.
So
Speaking to the
in
owner for
terms
us
of
is a
the
huge
support that
advantage, because
people
they generally
give
have the
in terms
packet
of
there,
donating, in terms of
the active ingredients. So that's really
whatever it may
important.
be,
The other things are important. Weight of your dog,
us being
not for
able
every
to
single one,
keep
of course,
going
but
and
for
continue
most,
to deliver the service
that
that
will
we are,
change the
and
outcome
open in
depending
new
on
locations,
how big your
which
dog is and how
is
much
more
they've had.
important
We work
to
it
me.
out.
I mean, I
So that
love
is
that we give an
important.
out
Also,
area,
when
but
it
for
happened,
me, it's
I
about
try and have a
these
sort
teams
of,
of
and how
vets and
much.
nurses on the ground, because that's what
owners don't
actually
always know, and that's fine.
allows
We're
a
used to that.
relationship to form,
But
and
we
allows
question
us
very
to
carefully about what is the
work together with
maximum
the owner.
and what's
Whereas
the minimum
in the
of the
area,
amount,
we are just kind
and
of
what was the furthest
funding
time
something.
ago, and what was
That's
the most
honest truth.
recent.
There's no,
So it might have
like,
been
if
someone's
God
been out
forbid,
shopping for
but
3
we have
hours,
a
but
client
they came
whose
about half an
animal
hour
gets
ago
put
and they
to
found the
sleep,
dog's had
we
some
have
medication,
the team,
and
we
they're
have
very
5
worried. And we
vet
then
nurses
say,
that
okay,
work
so when did you
centrally
go
for
out? When did you
Streetbit,
come back?
and
So we know
they
that's our
find that
window.
really hard,
And
because
sometimes we can rule it out
we
as
just
being a
don't know what
problem because
happens
the dog's not
afterwards.
showing any
Whereas when
signs,
it's
and
in
actually would have
a
shown signs
location
by
where
now.
we
I think it was
exist,
like 3 or
we
4
know
hours
that
ago.
client.
So that can
You know,
really
we know
help
that
us
we can
time
check up
but there's no doubt that the packaging or active ingredients
and so
is really important.
That's the
and
model
I think
that we want.
The other very important thing to tell owners
I guess we're striving to do,
panic.
and that's where the funds.
We have so many people coming
obviously
through
to the hostel scheme
and crying,
and keeping that running
and
as well.
we really
So
two things.
Got
Don't
locations.
don't
You mentioned
consult
you've got, just
Dr.
before we went
Google
live,
before you
you've got
come
quite a
through
lot
to
of
us, because
locations. It's not like you've just got a couple. I mean, mentioned kind of I'm on the Birmingham Warwickshire border, but you said you've got locations in Birmingham, street vets in Birmingham.
Not saying
Birmingham
all
has
misinformation.
been
Sometimes you will get an idea,
a location
but you can
for
confirm
many
it with
years.
us.
But
But there are some
we've
times when it's
just
so
formed a
vastly
strategic
different. We
alliance
tell
with
you there's a
Battersea,
huge relief
which
to you.
has
So
allowed
try
us
not to
to
panic,
commit. They've
even
given
for
funding to
things
support
like
us opening
rat
2 new
poison,
locations a year for the
slug
next
bait,
5
those
years.
things that you think,
So
or
we
bleach,
just
these things you
opened
think, I'm sure my
Torquay,
dog is going to be
we've
very
opened
seriously
Hastings,
ill.
and we're
80%
opening
of people that
Liverpool
speak to
in
us
June.
don't have to go to the vets. It is a
And then I don't know
huge
the next
number.
one is the honest
So,
answer.
and you've
Quite
got
a lot of
time. If your
research
dog's
now.
not showing
Whereas
signs or
before,
showing
when I
mild
started, it
signs,
was
you've
just
got
like,
time to speak to
where
us.
we go next?
Yeah, I think the podcast
keep you
that
at home,
Rachel was
even
on,
if it's
you had
something that
it was a
think
mandatory, began
is
with
definitely
B to
poison, like
begin with,
rat
didn't
poison.
it?
You've got to remember
it
things
was
like
just
rat
like,
poison and slug bait
it was
are
where
designed to kill
people said
rats
to
and
me,
slugs
Jade,
and not
come
dogs.
and we'll
So
do it for you. You know,
there was
we've
a
got
high
vets, we've got
chance
volunteers and nurses
that your
that want to
dog
do it.
won't
Now
have a
it's a
problem
bit more strategic.
after our
We have
questioning.
to
We only
look
send a
at,
very few in.
homelessness figures, because there's
So
everybody
it's
needs
just the peace of mind to
support,
get the accurate
and
information.
it's
How much
deciding,
does it cost,
obviously,
Nicola,
where
to
there
phone
isn't,
your number? So it's 24 hours a
support
day I could
already,
phone. And
where
is the two different
we
costs,
feel
one
there's a lot of
for
dogs
working
where we
hours and one for
feel we
out
can
of
make the
hours, if
biggest
I remember
impact.
rightly?
And
Yeah,
obviously, are there
that's
vets
right.
and
It sounds
nurses
like
that
when you
want to
called
do
us,
it
you
as
were
well?
in such a panic. Can't remember how much you paid us, which is
Well,
It's definitely
which is
piqued my
interesting.
interest in the sense
well,
that I know
I
you
went to the
said that
vet.
there's
I
a
didn't know. I
presence
went to the
in
vet and got the
Reading,
vet to phone
and
them.
I'll talk to
And
my
then the vet
local
phoned
vets
you.
and
And
understand how,
if I'm honest, it
if
turned
they're
out I could have
involved
phoned
and
you and spent a
etc. Because
lot
I do
less
think,
money than I
hopefully,
did
this
panicking, driving
discussion
to the
will really
vets, having
raise
a
that
meltdown
awareness,
about my dog.
and we'll put
And
some
then,
links on
you
onto your
got the same advice
website,
from you guys that I could have got from
so where
home.
the Amazon wish list people can donate and stuff, and
Well,
hopefully
I think the problem that you've
I'll
got
feel a lot more
is
knowledgeable
that
to be able to talk
it
about
is completely
on
natural and normal
Sunday,
to call
that's for
your vet
sure.
first, and that is absolutely fine. Many vets will then recommend you call the
I think that's
poison
a
line
really
first, so
positive
they can
thing.
decide whether it's worth you coming in.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the
we've got the
services are
Amazon
quite
wish
different.
list, and if
It's a
people just aren't
triage
sure
line,
how
so
they're
you'll come
inspired by
through
you and the
and it'll
incredible work
be,
you're doing,
we
and they
are
want to get in touch
working
to
hours during the week
help
for the
and don't
cheaper
quite know how
rate
to, is
is
there a
8
best
in
way
the morning till
to
8
get
in
in
the
touch with the
evening.
charity,
And the
Jade?
reason we set
Yeah,
those
I mean, we've
times
got
is
a website
because
which is
8 in the evening captures
streetvet.org.uk.
most people when they're
The
talking
email
before going on to the
is
sort of out of hours fee. So
info@streetvet.org.uk. We're on
35
Facebook,
8 till 8
LinkedIn,
Monday to
Instagram,
Friday,
all the usual,
and then all other times, including bank
locations.
holidays, is £10 more.
But
That's
yeah,
all night as
there's
well, so that's 45.
one-off giving. There's
Okay,
monthly
now if
giving.
you do go
Amazon wish
in,
list people
say a few
like
people
because
do
they're
have
buying
to.
a
We always
specific
explain
thing,
why
and
and your
sometimes we will do
time, how
appeals.
quickly you
So
need to get
we have
there,
a
and
lot
what
of dogs
we
and
give you a
buggies
rough outline,
around and about,
potentially
just
manage your
because not
expectations
necessarily
about
because
whether your
they
pet
can't
will
walk,
stay in
because
or
the
not.
owners need to
But we
walk,
don't go
and
into
if they're a wee
treatment.
bit
This is not
arthritic,
a
it gives
line
them a
for
chance
treatment
to
advice that has to be discussed with the vet
take a load
directly,
off. So
because that's
sometimes we
safer
do
and obviously more
specific appeals
appropriate.
for
So if
certain
the
things,
vet,
and
if it's
the
a
puppies are
poison they don't know how to
absolutely
treat or they haven't
incredible.
had before, that's when they call the
To
other
help
line, the
us with those
VPIS line,
specific drives.
and when the
So
if
yeah,
they need to
there's
contact us
plenty
to
of
get some
ways
support.
to get
And they
involved, but
often,
I guess
not always,
for me, I
we
always
have
say
no
this, but
control
I'm going to
over
say
what
it
the
anyway.
vet's prices are, of course,
If you see
but they
someone
often pass a
experiencing
charge
lessons with
on,
a dog,
as you
please
said,
just
Claire,
talk
that's
to them.
bigger, because it's a professional fee,
You know,
because we go through all the treatment
you're a dog
advice and
person,
they get
otherwise
lots
you
of
wouldn't be
recalls
listening.
until the
So,
vet's better.
and so are they,
There can
and
be
we
weeks
love
that you
nothing
speak
more
to
in
the
life
vets
than
for.
talking about our
So
dogs,
that
right?
one is
So
more
you
expensive,
just
and
lead with
they
that.
will pass on
And
their
as
own
long as it's
charge.
said in
Not,
a positive
it's nearly
way,
always not the charge that
not
we
like
charge
me
them
when I
who have a
first
membership
started,
with
which
us.
was, you know,
They will
do you
pass
need
on the
any help with
charge
your dog?
that
No,
they
just
said to the
your dog's
owner, and we
gorgeous,
then
can I stroke
refund the
him?
owner
Whatever.
general poison line fee they've
And
paid, so that
it
the owner's
will,
only
it
paying
could be the only conversation they've had for
once
days.
for our
And
services.
that in itself is really massive. And then
which is such a good
having a
service,
conversation
and
with
like you
someone
say, you
feel
prevent so
confident
many
enough to say,
people
have you heard of street vet? Do you know who
going
they are?
having to actually go to the
If
vet.
they
So
have,
just I think to
brilliant.
have that
If they
peace of
haven't, and they
mind
would like
that
to
yes, I
know
don't
about
need
us,
to go,
you can
or yes, I
advocate
need
for
to get
them,
them there,
and you know,
and
either
this is what
show
I
them
need
the
to do,
websites. Most people have got
can be
phones,
really
Yeah,
or
reassuring.
you can contact
I
us
think
on your
also,
behalf, and we
if I
will get
can
back in
just
touch
say
with them,
one thing to help people,
and
is
see if
just
we can
don't
help them
guess.
if
I
they need
mean,
help.
it's really easy
That's
to guess. I
incredible.
think this is going to be
Thank
I
you
think that's
so
a
much,
lovely way
Jed.
to
a few
Yeah,
licks or something,
lovely
or it's not going to be okay because it's
and
on the
just
tablets. And actually, the tablets might be
I just wanted
absolutely
to say that
fine,
you've talked so much
and the
about
licks,
so many
small
people
amount
doing
of
so many
something may
things,
not
and I
be.
think
So it's really worth
and
taking that
talked
amount
about
of
the
pride
naivety of
just
it all when you
checking,
started,
because
but honestly, you're such an inspirational lady, because a lot of people see things and a lot of people can have thoughts about things, but to go and make something happen and to do the doing on the good days and the days when it's amazing, but the days when it's tough and it's quiet and behind the scenes, you're such an inspiration. So just thank you so much for what you're doing.
Also, don't try
it's incredible.
and do
It's
treatment at
absolutely
home by
brilliant, and it's so
giving, for example,
inspiring.
people try and give salt
Thank you for
water to
supporting
make their
it
dogs
and
or
believing in
cats
it too.
sick,
So
when salt is very poisonous.
You're very welcome. And
And we've had cases where we've had to send
if
them
anyone
for
has
salt
any future
poisoning,
questions,
when
then please
actually
get
the
in touch
original
with Claire or I, or
product
obviously
that they'd
get in touch
eaten
with James
was
directly
fine.
via the website. We'll put the links below. And have
Medication
a
was
good evening,
absolutely fine.
and
Just
see as many
rang
of you
us
as
first.
possible on
That would have saved
17th of
them
May,
going with a salt issue.
2026, in case people are
Keep
watching
calm.
back.
Just get the right advice quickly.
Give us a turning up, won't we, afterwards? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. It's just fascinating that I think the key points are, if in any doubt, phone, because
this evening,
if you
slightly
wait
later
for
than normal.
symptoms, sometimes if you get to the point where
be
you're getting
interested to
symptoms,
see
that
who
can
joins
be,
us this
that's
evening.
not good.
Claire.
So if
So as
your
always,
dog has been
Claire's
exposed to
just
something,
doing some behind the scenes
call
to
straight away.
get
And
stream
did you
up
say a
and
very
running
high
on her
percentage of people
Facebook
that
page.
actually
And
call
so,
you don't actually have to
welcome.
go to the
We have
vets?
street vets, and
But if they do have
Jade
to go to the
is
vets, it's
joining us
often quite
tonight.
time
And
sensitive.
we're
just
very,
think
very honoured
it's
for
cost
you
of a
to
meal
join
out,
us.
isn't
Really
it?
appreciate
And
you giving
compared
up the
to
time
how
to
much
share a
that
little bit
can
about
cost.
what's
I mean,
going
it's
on
just I think
with Street
we
Vets, your
sometimes don't
ambitions
put
and the
those things
history
into
behind it.
perspective, do we? And
So
for that peace of
before
mind, I think
we
it's
kick
worth
off that,
doing.
just to remind
Nick,
everybody
can you
who
just
may
check
not
your
know who I am,
connection?
I'm
'Cause I
Sarah
think
from
there's
Berkshire
some
Dog
big back
Training.
feed on
I'm
your
based in
side.
Reading in Berkshire, supporting our owners with real life situations from when they get their first puppy home, or other issues that they may be dealing with when the dog maybe doesn't do quite what they expect to do. So I'm on hand to support them and help them understand.
Oh, that's lovely. We've just had a note from Steph, who said we were very reassured when Spirit ate a little candle. We even managed a little laugh before hanging up. So one of their dogs ate a candle and contacted you.
Exclusively with Insight Hounds in person and online, and I specialise in veterinary hounds.
And I'm so excited for our guest this evening. So thank you so much to Jay, who's one of the co-founders of Street Vet, for joining us today. So welcome, Jade.
thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. If people have no idea who you are or haven't heard of Street Vet, can you just give them a little bit of background as to who you are and this amazing charity you've created?
Absolutely. My name is Jade Stant, and I qualified as a vet in early 200s.
Well, I have to say that we are better. We're better being toxicologists than advertising. One of the big things that we want to do is raise awareness, but we just trying to get the word out there to the public is hard. So thank you for giving me this platform to at least raise awareness.
With some friends of mine and Stop to Talk to Dogs.
Fantastic, thank you. We will put a link, Nicola, but I'm conscious we've been talking about your services. If somebody had an incident where they needed to phone you, if they did use Dr. Google, what do they put in Dr. Google to find you?
I've got the details all ready to go, Claire.
Interestingly, just put animal poison line.
Nutty staffy,
Actually,
who was
quite a few
flicking me
people
in the
find us
face
online anyway, because
and
they say
and
that
we
through
got
AI
talking,
and
and
ChatGPT that they're
was just
getting
really
our
worried
names
his
coming
dog
up,
had
so they may well
some
find
sore
it nice
skin
and
issues,
quickly.
but
But if they
red,
just put
but
poison line
itchy,
UK, animal poison line UK, something like that, then they'll find us.
I had no idea where people
fantastic.
in those kind of
Thank
situations
you
would
so
take their
much,
dog
Sarah's just popped
for
it
vet
in the
care.
chat
So
for
I
us.
just
So
asked him, and
a
he was like,
huge thank you,
I don't
Nicola,
know,
for
Jade,
coming on
like I
and
really
talking
have no
about
idea
that.
what
As
I'm
I say,
going to
it's
do.
been on my
At
wish
that
list to
time,
speak to you for such a long time,
I
and
was
I'm so grateful.
going through a kind of
So grateful for you to come
pre-grievance
on and spend
process
your
with my own
evening
dog,
chatting
so I had a
to us.
chocolate
It's been
Labrador
really
called Oakley,
informative and really useful. And I think if in any doubt, please give you a call. And thank you so much for coming and speaking to us.
I knew, and explored every option I could possibly
Thank
find. And I
you.
knew I was going to
Take
lose him.
care, everyone.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
he'd been just that kind of